There's a lot of talk these days about relationship anxiety. If you've got an anxious attachment style in a relationship, or if you've got an anxious avoidant attachment style. But I've got another way for you to think about anxiety and how it shows up in a relationship, like between Ken and Barbie.
Hi, Ken.
Hi,
The
Barbie.
type of relational anxiety we're talking about all comes from the world of family systems theory, and in particular, Murray Bowen's ideas on chronic stress or chronic anxiety. In his work, he talks about 4 ways or 4 behavioral patterns that couples fall into in order to deal with this relational anxiety. In this video, we're going to explore one of those ways that's all to do with recognizing an imbalance in a relationship. So if you're a therapist and you're doing couples therapy, the presenting problem is an issue with only one partner. They're the IP or the identified patient. This might sound like we're coming to couples therapy because my partner is depressed. And even we're coming to counseling because I don't want to have sex with my partner anymore. It might also sound a bit like Ken and Barbie's issue.
We are in therapy because I'm worried about Ken. His diet, his hygiene, and health behaviors are really out of control. We fight about it all the time.
Well, I think we are here because Barbie is too controlling and bosses me around. It drives me nuts, and that's what starts our fights.
If any of this sounds familiar, stay tuned. And of course, I would love it if you hit subscribe and follow, or leave a comment if you want me to make more videos on this topic. That feedback is what tells me what is going to be more helpful for you. And if we've not met before, my name is Oliver, and I'm a family systems therapist in Los Angeles. I'm a clinical director, a clinical supervisor. And I've noticed with a lot of my supervisees that relationship anxiety comes up a lot. And either they're not quite sure how to conceptualize it, or they don't recognize the various and quite subtle ways that it does show up in the room. My hope with this video is that I can help you spot some of the signs and variations of this dynamic, and most importantly, help you understand what to do about it. But first, let me give you a quick Cliff Notes crash course on Murray Bowen and what differentiation of self is. And if you want a more detailed understanding of this, there's actually a free course you can sign up for on mypeoplepatterns.com. I'll put the link below, and I think I can put it at the end of the video too. So I'm going to cheat here and edit in a section from another video because I've literally found the most messy way to describe differentiation of self, and the kitchen cleanup is Frankl.
This is a fully differentiated person. They can separate out their thoughts, feelings, self, and other. That means that they can have thoughts about their feelings about their thoughts, and they place a balanced amount of attention on their self as well as others. As a result, they get to respond to life by making decisions based on all the information that they can possibly have available to them. This is what most of us on the planet look like, though. Our thoughts, feelings, self, and other are a bit of a hot mess. We have a hard time separating out our thoughts and feelings, and there's an imbalance in how much attention we place on ourselves and other people. We tend to be more reactive in life rather than responsive. That's because we carry around more of this. This is chronic anxiety. When we can separate out our thoughts, feelings, self, and other, there's not really that much room for chronic anxiety. But when we're undifferentiated, we can carry so much more. The more chronic anxiety we have, the more likely we are to be reactive and engage in unhealthy patterns of behavior, especially in relationships.
So this is the way that I depict someone with a lower level of differentiation when I'm teaching it and explaining it to clients. 2 of the things that we're going to focus on in this video is boundaries around this person and also the chronic anxiety that builds them up. Now, the way that I visualize a healthy relationship is 2 fully differentiated people getting closer over time. They remain really close, but separate individuals. But no one on the planet is like this. No one is fully differentiated. And actually, we look a lot more like this. 2 undifferentiated people in a relationship, which is all of us, to varying degrees, inherently have some issues because both individuals have a huge amount of difficulty thinking about their feelings and having feelings about their thoughts. And they will also find it hard to keep a clear distinction between self and other. As you get closer to someone over time, we come into a situation where these porous boundaries become a problem. Whereas 2 differentiated people stop when they bump up to each other, undifferentiated people tend to overlap. Now, of course, granted, this is the way that my weird brain thinks. This is a visual representation of something that I'm trying to explain as real. What it means, though, is there's some blurring of you and me, which is particularly problematic because of what happens with all of that chronic anxiety. It gets shared in the same vat when we get close to someone. So we have this kind of romantic notion that we're going to leave home, fall in love, have a partner or two. Hey, I'm kink and poly affirmative. We're going to get committed, move in together, possibly have kids. And unconsciously, we think that when we meet this person, when it happens, we're going to feel so much better because that person is going to help get rid of all of our chronic anxiety. But actually, the chronic anxiety is double. And this is why Murray Bowen says that a dyad, two people, is the most unstable type of relationship. It's too intense for us because of all of this anxiety and because we can't separate out thoughts, feelings, self, and other. Bowen's ideas come from his time watching, observing, and monitoring hundreds of families over a few decades, I think, as a psychiatrist in hospitals. And he came up with this idea that there's really only 4 or 5 different ways that couples handle this chronic anxiety. Conflicts, they can have big blow-ups.
That's us!
They can just disengage and become emotionally distant or move to another city. Triangles, they can triangulate in a third person. Some people look at alcohol or work as a form of a triangle. And over and under functioning. And that is what the rest of this video is about. And that's actually what Ken and Barbie have, but I haven't told them yet. In this dyad, one person is the overfunctioner, and they take on all of that chronic anxiety on behalf of their other person. They've got their own and their partners. And anxiety is activating, right? It makes us want to do something. So the overfunctioner is almost guaranteed to be the partner or the parent that calls you because, they're going to be the one taking charge of organizing the therapy. They're going to be the one that organizes the social calendar, pays the bills, does the dishes, the cleaning. They get stuff done. I want to give you a really detailed picture of the overfunctioner, and I'll put this in a handout as a PDF, and the link will be below somewhere. On the surface, overfunctioners appear to be doing really well in life, and they are very productive most of the time. They're usually highly functioning people, but they may experience periodic burnout or sudden illness due to the energy and stress of carrying out the task for 2 people or more than 2 people in a family. They like to give advice to others, often because they feel responsible for them, worry about their well-being. That's a self and other situation, right? The other person is becoming the priority. The overfunctioner performs the majority of tasks in the relationship, financial, social, emotional responsibilities. And as a result, they have more control in their relationship. Now, the downside to all of this, number one, is they're often very surprised to hear that they have the same level of differentiation as their partner because they view themselves as doing better than their partner. And, from an outward perspective, it's true, but it's a function of low levels of differentiation. They've benefited by being in the one-up position and view themselves as the healthier partner, which is not healthy if you're looking down on your partner. They may play the role of martyr. They may complain about being overworked and underappreciated, and they convey the message that they know what is best for their partner through their advice giving and caretaking. When you get into the core of what is going on in that relationship, you'll find that they often overfunction out of fear that something bad will happen if they don't take action. Now, these are sometimes legitimate fears driving them, but assessing what will happen if they don't overfunction may need to happen in your therapy session. They may have had parents who relied on them to be overfunctioning or parentified them, and that's something to unpack in other sessions as well. Your goal is to help this person become less other-oriented and more focused on self. The big thing I want to stress is that the overfunctioner always ends up pissed off, frustrated, and resentful. And you might be able to pick that up right from the start. Let's look at the underfunctioner then. This is the person that takes less or little responsibility for anything in the relationship. Over time, they may take on the idea that they are not good enough or adopt a passive role because they know that the other person will take care of the problem. If I don't do the dishes for long enough, I'm kind of okay with that because I know you'll do it. They are quick to seek advice or help when they are perfectly capable of acting independently and know the answers or know what to do. It feels a bit like learned helplessness to some degree. This can be a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, and they struggle with a lack of goals or struggle to follow through on the few goals they do set. This leads them to avoid responsibilities due to a lack of confidence or a lack of skills in that area. And they can act irresponsibly. They can sometimes become mentally or physically ill or become addicted to substances. It's not infrequent to see a functioning or enabling partner or overfunctioning partner with somebody who's using or drinks too much. This makes them the symptom carrier of the relationship. They carry some type of dysfunction, which is labeled as depression or addiction, but in family systems theory, we label it as underfunctioning. Both things can be true. It's also really possible that the underfunctioner either likes being taken care of, or they may feel that there's no room for them since the overfunctioner is doing it all. And if that's the case, it might be worth looking into family of origin patterns. Where did this come from? The underfunctioner might distance themselves from the relationship in pursuit of fulfillment from outside sources. They may spend more time with friends at the golf course doing other things. And in that way, you can look at it as a triangle as well. They may have had parents who did not rely on them to take responsibility growing up. It could have been a learned behavior. And the goal in therapy is to have them not ask for help when it's not really needed. Let's talk about what not to do in this type of relationship. First of all, I think you should not be put off if you don't see this in all aspects of the couple's life. You may have an underfunctioner who is an amazing worker or runs a really successful company, but at home, they completely underfunction. These are reciprocal relationships that are not necessarily fixed in position. They can be fluid and move over time. You should absolutely be aware that underfunctioning can become a power struggle against the overfunctioner's demands and requests. So you have to handle this delicately. Asking the underfunctioner to step up puts you in a trap of being another overfunctioner demanding change. So if you spot this, be very careful in how you request the underfunctioner to step up. Now, conversely, asking the overfunctioner to stop overfunctioning in a therapy session is asking them to change first, which is basically asking them to overfunction in a therapy session. So what can you do? Well, some of the goals of this is important to look at first. The key to making changes in this dynamic is to get both partners to see that they are stuck in this relational pattern and to help them become aware of the pattern, or sometimes it's a cycle. We're talking about understanding what is driving the dynamic, and that's always a big help. If you can get the overfunctioner to be more concerned with their self versus the business of the other person, that's going to be help. We want to stop this anxious focus on other and keep it on self. We want the underfunctioner to not ask for help or elicit help from the overfunctioner. And there are several strategies you can employ to get deeper into this dynamic. Number one, this balance of responsibility and control is an important theme to explore with this type of couple, because overfunctioners typically have more responsibility and more control in the relationship, while underfunctioners assume less responsibility. Helping each of them recognize the benefits and costs of their role can sometimes be a catalyst enough for change. So overfunctioners may feel motivated to change if they see it as a way to reduce their burden, while underfunctioners might be motivated by the opportunity to gain more influence or more control in the relationship. My tip here is to get them talking about feelings, not thoughts. How does it feel to hear your partner say they are exhausted and burned out from doing so much?
I understand that you're worried, but I feel dismissed and unseen. It's like you don't trust me to take care of myself. Then I start thinking that you don't imagine that I'm capable of looking after myself, and I feel powerless and useless.
Number two is you can address the overfunctioner's fears. So speaking of feelings, individuals who overfunction often do so out of a feeling of fear that something bad will happen if they don't take the action themselves. So you can explore what fears may be driving this overfunctioning. Helping the overfunctioner be more vulnerable and express feelings can help the underfunctioner take a more compassionate stance. and see their partner in a different light rather than viewing them as controlling. You may need to also help the overfunctioner assess the realism of their fears.
I guess I just want Ken to take better care of himself because I'm scared that something bad will happen to him if he doesn't. I nag him because I am afraid.
Right? That might be a legitimate fear there, but other times it might be a bit irrational. You can also address the underfunctioner's fears. Underfunctioners may avoid certain responsibilities due to a lack of confidence or skills in that area. You can explore these fears and help the underfunctioner address them, either by giving some instruction, providing them some psychoeducation, or treating any underlying mental health issues, assessing the balance. You could and should probably explore whether this pattern plays out in all aspects of their life, or if they switch roles depending on the issue. So if they're balanced in general, it may not be a problem. So that looks like, I'll do the taxes, but you book the vacation. That's a balance, but problems arise when one person is predominantly overfunctioning and the other person underfunctioning. That means you do the taxes, cook the dinner, plan the vacation, and I'll just watch TV. So understanding which areas this dynamic occurs in and where it does not occur in could be helpful in your understanding of things. And the final point that I think is helpful to do with couples like this is that you can help prepare clients for the extra anxiety that comes into a system whenever there's a big nodal event, as well as anxiety that's in the system inherently from having lower levels of differentiation. Big life stresses or nodal events will also add to it. Things like getting married, moving house, changing careers, all of these are big stresses that add to that mix. And when this anxiety reaches its tipping point, they're much more likely to revert to patterns of dysfunction that we talked about: conflict, distance, triangles, over and underfunction. In times of more stress, underfunctioners may question their ability to tackle new responsibilities, while overfunctioners may worry that things will not get done correctly. So by getting ahead and predicting when events are going to happen, you can help couples predict their behavioral patterns in advance, which sometimes makes it easier to avoid falling into these same old patterns. All right, I hope that was helpful for you. If it was, please let me know by hitting like or comment or sharing it with a friend. I'll put the PDF to download below. And of course, please hit subscribe and follow and tell me what you want to hear more of.